Namo Namaha, Bhavtam Sarvesham, Hardam Swagatam. Welcome back to my channel Sanskrit Sopanam. I hope you are doing great. I am also good. And continuing in a series, learning Sanskrit through Gita, the shloka that we are going to decode today, that is the 10th shloka of the chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, it is actually fairly easy to understand grammar and vocabulary wise. But the tricky part is its translation. And the reason I say so is because if you will look up on the internet for the Gita commentary on this particular shloka, so a lot of different people, a lot of different acharyas who have commented on this shloka, they have different translation. And the reason for this difference in translation is only because of the two particular words that Duryodhana uses, one to describe his own army and other to describe the army of Pandava. So what is it and how we gonna decode it? Let's quickly dive in today's shloka. Okay, so as usual, I have the shloka ready with me. Let me quickly go through it once. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tudme tesham balam bhimabhirakshitam. So as you can see, a pretty straightforward shloka. And if you'll see the Sandhi Vichhed version of the shloka also, not much happening Sandhi wise also. You have only two Sandhis that are happening. But mind you, both these Sandhis that are happening, this tatasmakam, which in the original shloka is tadasmakam, this is jashtu Sandhi. And tu idam, which in the original shloka is twidam, so this is yan sandhi. So even though only two sandhis are happening, but these two sandhis are brand new, and this is the first time we are encountering these sandhis through the Gita series. So what these sandhis and how they work, everything in the PDF file as usual. You can download the PDF file from the link in the description box, and I'll strongly suggest that you download the PDF file and you go through that sandhi section at least, because sandhi is something that we do not cover in the video, but very important, very essential to understand any Sanskrit text, not just Gita. And coming back to this Sandhi Vichhed version, you can clearly see there is a lot of similarity between the two lines of the shloka. So aparyaptam, paryaptam, balam, balam, bhishma abhirakshitam, bhim abhirakshitam. So quite a symmetrical shloka, and that's why I said this particular shloka grammatically is fairly easy to understand. Okay, so let's start decoding a particular shloka, and as usual we begin with an anchor word. So the first anchor word is aparyaptam, that is coming from here, aparyaptam tadasmakam. Okay, now the entire confusion, and I won't say confusion, but rather the difference in interpretation of this particular shloka by different people is owed to these two words, aparyaptam and paryaptam. These two words are the cause of the difference in interpretation. How so? Both these words can have either of the meaning, both in a good way and in a negative way. So this particular word, aparyapt, this actually paryapt is a very common word we use in Hindi, and a lot of people, a lot of you might already know the meaning of this word paryapt. It is sufficient, something that is sufficient or adequate. So aparyapt, this word in a negative sense can mean something that is insufficient, right? So paryapt, something that is sufficient or adequate. So aparyapt is something that is insufficient, and this is in a negative way. Okay, but the same word aparyapt can also have a meaning that is in a good way, which means something that is limitless. Something that is limitless. Why? Because if you think about it, something that is adequate or something that is sufficient is still a definite amount, right? And aparyapt can mean something that is indefinable or something that is this uncontainable, unlimited, unbounded. That so huge a number that it is uncontainable or indefinable or unlimited. So aparyapt, one that is insufficient, and in a positive way it can mean limitless. And same goes the case for paryapt also. That this word paryapt, in a positive sense, this word can mean again sufficient or something that is adequate, properly adequate. But in a negative way, it can also mean something that is limited or that is definable. So it is not infinite, it is limited, it is definable. Okay. So aparyapt and paryapt, they can have either of the way, and this is the whole cause of the confusion. Or rather difference in the interpretation of this shloka. What we are going to do in this shloka, I'm going to stick with the interpretation that I best relate to. So this is just my interpretation, and it is a sort of a disclaimer that I don't claim authority over this particular translation. It is just my interpretation of this shloka, of the mindset or the context of Mahabharata and the mindset of Duryodhana, that why Duryodhana must have said these words or choose to use these words. Okay. So anyways, we start the shloka with aparyaptam, and in my case, I am choosing that it means unlimited or something that is uncontainable. Very huge, very big, mammoth, infinite. Okay. We start the shloka with this, and immediately a question pops up. Kim, what? That I say aparyaptam, and immediately the question is, what is aparyaptam? What is unlimited? And the answer we get from the shloka is tat balam. Tat balam aparyaptam. Okay. This word balam, this is in the first line also, in the second line also. Both the cases, the root word is bala. Bal simply means strength. Okay. And again, as per the context of the shloka and the whole Mahabharata setting, you can very easily identify that this strength, this means the strength of army. And this tat, this is simply, you may already know, is a pronoun. Tad, that means that. Okay. Now this bala, no. This bala is a neuter gender word. And this is in first case. So in first case, don't confuse. The neuter gender words in first case becomes balam. And in second case also they become balam. So the neuter gender words, both the first case and the second case are exactly same. Phalam phale phalani, phalam phale phalani. Simple as that. So don't say that, oh, first case is generally balaha or ramaha. This is for the masculine gender word. So balam. And why tat? Because again, the base pronoun, the base word is tad. That means that. And since the noun is neuter gender and in first case, so its pronoun will also be in neuter gender first case. So the neuter gender first case of this tad is again tat. Okay, so tat balam, simply meaning that strength. That is the strength of army force. Simple as that. And we'll move forward. So the question is kidrishaha, what like? That force, that strength, what was it like? What is it like? Describe it. And the answer is Bhishma Abhirakshitam. In the actual shloka, this is actually Bhishma Abhirakshitam. Why Bhishma Abhirakshitam? Because a sandhi is happening here. The sandhi is mentioned in the PDF file again. Very simple, Dirgha sandhi is happening. Okay, so Bhishma Abhirakshitam, if we split the word, so it is basically Bhishma Abhirakshitam. Let's understand this word, Abhirakshitam, because again, same word here also, but the only difference is Bhim, Abhirakshitam. So, Abhirakshitam simply means guarded or protected. And Abhi, this is kind of a prefix, so it emphasizes, it gives it more meaning, that protected or guarded from all sides. So, completely guarded, you can say. And since this complete word, Bhishma Abhirakshitam, is a samas, is a compound word, it basically means guarded by Bhishma or guarded by Bhishma Pitamaha. So moving forward, the another question is Kesham or whose? So again, this Kesham, now we have repeated all these things so many times that I am pretty sure that now you guys can catch up on these things. That Kesham, this again comes from the base word Kim. Kim base word means who. The pronoun word means who. And Kesham simply is sixth case plural. That this army that is protected by Bhishma, it belongs to who? And the response is, this is Asmakam. Asmakam army. Asmakam simply means ours. Asmakam, you should guess that this comes from the first person pronoun asmat. Everything that is related to the first person, I, me, us, we both, we all, ours, everything that is related to first person, the first person pronoun, that the base word is asmat. Okay. And this word asmakam is simply the sixth case plural form. Why sixth case again? Because sixth case is where we show the belonging, that of him, of her, of us, of you. So whenever we want to show it belongs to who, whenever we want to show that, we use the sixth case. So this army of us. So of us, that's why sixth case and plural, because again us. Duryodhana is not saying that the army of me. Otherwise he would have used mama. He's saying the army of all of us. That's why asmakam. Okay, aparyaptam, we started with this word. Aparyaptam again can have either of the meaning both in a positive way and in a negative way. I am choosing the meaning that is this, that is in a positive way actually, that unlimited or unbounded or uncontainable. Question was what aparyaptam? And the answer is tatbalam aparyaptam. That is, that strength. That strength is aparyaptam. Then I asked, what is strength? Like, what it described that strength. So, the strength, the force that was Bhishma Abhirakshitam, that was protected by Bhishma. Okay. And by this, it was clear that Duryodhana is talking about Kaurava army and its strength. Okay. Then the last question was Kesham, whose? That this force that you are talking about, this force belongs to who? And Duryodhana simply said, it belongs to us, Asmakam. So our Kaurava army is aparyaptam, or our Kaurava army is unlimited or unbounded or uncontainable. Okay, this is the first line. Now let's move forward and decode the second line. Now a lot of second line is already decoded because lot of repetitive words, right? So for the second line, we start with this anchor word, paryaptam. And again, we have discussed, no, paryaptam in a good way means sufficient or adequate. And in a negative way, it can also mean something that is limited, something that is containable. But I am choosing this meaning as per my interpretation of the shloka. So paryaptam meaning sufficient or adequate. Moving forward. Again, see, I have created the similar kind of context what we created before for the first line. So what paryaptam? And idam balam paryaptam. So there it was tat balam, that force. And here this balam, this again means strength. And idam, this comes from the base word. Actually, the base word is also same, idam. And idam means this. Again, a pronoun that means this. So we saw the pronoun tad, that means that. And now we have another pronoun idam, which means this. Okay. And since, as we have covered earlier for the first line, bala, it is the neuter gender word, and in first case, that's why it becomes balam. So this idam also, we are going to take the neuter gender first case form. And for neuter gender first case, this is actually idam only. Same, how the base word sounds. So idam balam simply means this strength. So moving forward, again, similar kind of context, kidrishaha. So in the first line, that force, that strength was Bhishma Abhirakshitam, protected by Bhishma. And here it is Bhim Abhirakshitam. Simple, Abhirakshitam we already know. Abhirakshitam means protected or guarded. And Bhim Abhirakshitam, this is a samas, compound word, that simply means protected by Bhima. Bhima Abhirakshitam, protected by Bhima. Talking about Pandava army now. Okay. And moving forward, again, the same context, Kesham, whose army? So there it was Asmakam, because Duryodhana was saying, right? So Duryodhana, when talking about Kaurava army, he said Asmakam, because army that belongs to us. And here, since he is talking about Pandava army, he says Etesham. Etesham, this comes from the word Etad. Etad again means this. So this pronoun in Sanskrit, it has two words. It can also be etad and it can also be idam that we just saw. So here it is etad, and again in sixth case, plural form, this etad becomes etesham, simply meaning theirs. So Duryodhana, when talking about Pandava army, simply says this army of theirs that is protected by Bhima, it is paryaptam, that it is sufficient, it is adequate. Okay. This is the entire meaning. And with this, let's move to the Anvay section of the shloka. Let's do the Anvay. Bhishma Bhirakshitam asmakam tad balam aparyaptam. To Bhima Bhirakshitam etesham idam balam paryaptam. Okay, so let's now open the translation and see along with Anvay. Protected by Bhishma, Bhishma Bhirakshitam, that strength, tat balam of ours, asmakam, is limitless and invincible. Aparyaptam. Duryodhana is saying for his army. 2. But then, Bhima Bhirakshitam, protected by Bhima, idam balam, this army's strength, etesham, of theirs, now is pointing towards Pandava army, paryaptam, is aptly sufficient to challenge us. So this is the interpretation that I get from the shloka. But if you choose to think of this word paryaptam as limited, as something that is limited or containable, so now the entire meaning of the shloka will change, because now this will become that protected by Bhishma, our army is limitless, invincible, but then their army is limited and containable. And by this, it would mean that Duryodhana, he is very confident about his army, but saying that Pandava army is not at all capable of challenging us. So this translation can correlate well with the egoistic nature of the Duryodhana. And Duryodhana, he had a bit of an ego problem. So that interpretation also, and a lot of people interpret it that way. So that interpretation also works. But my interpretation here is that Duryodhana, he is very confident about his army, actually overconfident about his army. That's why he chooses to say that his army, our army is limitless and invincible. So this shows his ego, that overconfident about his strength, about his army. But their army is aptly sufficient to challenge us. Why I choose this is because with this, it shows a bit of an insecurity of Duryodhana. That even though he was overconfident about his own strength, but he was also insecure and bit worried that even though the Pandava army is much smaller in scale than their own army, but still they are standing in front of them, still they are ready to challenge them. And this might have made Duryodhana a bit insecure and a bit worried. So that is the reason I chose this interpretation. But then again, paryaptam and aparyaptam can have either meanings, both in positive and negative way. So you can also have either of the translation or interpretation of this particular shloka. That is open for you to decide. Okay, but that is how we complete the shloka, the decoding of the shloka. I hope you learned some new words from it. I hope you learned the approach from it, and a fairly easy shloka. Don't miss out the PDF file that you can download from the link in the description box. Very important, go through that PDF file. If I miss something out in the video, it will cover in the PDF file. And please go through that Sandhi section. That Sandhi section, very important to understand any Sanskrit text. And I do not cover in the video, so I'm not very confident whether all of you are reading the Sandhi part. But please do read that Sandhi part. What I'll do in the next video, before starting the decoding of the shloka, I will revise all the sandhis that we have covered so far up to 10 shlokas. So with this, I'll end up this video. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something of value from it. And I'll see you in the next video. Stay awesome, stay happy. Until then, vayam punah milamaha. Dhanyawad.